the last president of the United States of America.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Battle of New Orleans Radio. This is a live episode. Last week we had a recorded episode, but this is live. It's going to be action-packed. I'm telling you, you're really going to love this show tonight. Please sit down and buckle up. We have defense contractor / Booz Allen Hamilton whistleblower, Second Lieutenant Scott Bennett, that's going to be joining us about 7:30. Him and his co-host, Mr. Michael J. But look, I'm Nathan Lawrenson. I have a great co-host, Goyam and Caleb Hitt on Skype. How y'all doing tonight, gentlemen?
Pretty good.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, that's right, man. It feels good to be back in the studio after missing last week. I know Goyam, he's been kind of shy the last.
I've been working. I got to pay the bills to the radio station.
How many shekels you made this week?
Not many, man. Not enough. But we're still on air as of now. I drove by the way, Nathan, the monument that everybody's fighting over there, Lee Circle, on the way here, and they wrote "Take them down now." Somebody defaced and defiled it. I don't know if you saw that.
I've seen John Bender from thehayride.com. I've seen his article in this picture. Go check it out, ladies and gentlemen. Thehayride.com. Mr. John Bender. Go check his article out. He's got a picture of it. You know, I can't stand that. But you know what I do like? What they did deface? The other monument, which the one over there by City Park.
They wrote Soros on it with little devil horns on it.
Yeah, they wrote Soros with devil horns. You know, so
like it.
That's great, man.
Yep.
You know, we're being attacked here on a local level. I know we talk about national and international topics on a great deal and try to really expose really what's behind the scenes. But here on a local level, you know, we're being affected. And everybody's being affected worldwide. And just for a prime example, you know, they're trying to shove this transgender movement down our throat. Okay, this stuff, it really doesn't even exist. Okay, yeah, there are a few anomalies.
0.003%.
Yeah, there is a few anomalies that it does happen and things get confused. But a lot of this now that we're seeing, you know, they're trying to make the perception become reality and steer us in this anti-family, anti-human agenda. Because at the end of the day, if we're all transgender, we're not reproducing. If we're not reproducing, that's the end of the species. It's no more clearer than this. And look, last night I'm on the local cable here, Cox Cable. It is a nationwide cable company
with an X at the end. Go ahead.
Yeah, yes, it's definitely COX. But I might change that spelling after looking at the. I'm on the On Demand, and I'm trying to find. I hate Hollywood today. The movies suck. Okay, I don't want to buy into it. You know, it's all full of propaganda. You know, you got the CIA spending billions, the Department of Defense spending billions. You know, infiltrating this, Hollywood and putting messages, and you just see it's all anti-human and anti-family. Well, so I'm on Cox, on their On Demand, and I'm looking for classic movies. I mean, they got to have on their genres classic movies. They got historical, they got history, they got comedy, they have documentaries. So I'm looking for classic. So, man, I get past the C's, there's no classic. So I keep scrolling. What do I come to when I get to the L? LGBT. There is a whole LGBT section for On Demand now. I got infuriated. This is the biggest load of crap I have ever seen. There's LGBT clubs now. Okay, and look, if you're lesbian or gay, look, I have no beef with you. That's cool. I'm not mad at you. If you're transgender, I'm not mad. It's cool. But understand there is a global agenda to break down and destroy the main fabric of our life, which is reproduction. And how are they targeting reproduction? Not only with this garbage that they're trying to put out the perception of, that there's just a transgender under every bush. Okay? Well, it's crap.
It's a red herring. It's a red herring.
It's garbage. They said there was going to start doing 182 sex changes a month in the military. And we were going to pay for it. There's no way there's 182 transgender people in the military, much less 182 a month. There's no way.
I mean, my take on it is it's a red herring. It's distractionary. It's a small percentage of society, but everybody's jumping in on it. And, you know, of course, you know, businesses are being asked to change their restroom setups and things like that. And then, of course, you got the heterosexuals being worried about their kids. And then the gay homosexual community is getting upset. But again, what are they trying to distract us from, Nathan? That's the thing. Because as we're fighting over this, gay, straight, and that we've seen this time and time again, they've divided every group, gay versus straight, Christian versus atheist. And we always talk about New World Order. It always comes down to depopulation.
That's the end game.
That is the end game. But I mean, in the heterosexual community now, look at them. They're all kissing their dogs and cats. It's too expensive to have kids, so now you can just hug your dog and cat and post that on Facebook all night.
Why is this even an issue? I do not care if you have a Johnson or don't have a Johnson. I don't care if you want to sleep with a frog or a fish or whatever.
Yeah.
My daughter came home from a private Catholic all-girls school in New Orleans, one of the most exclusive schools in the city, talking about pan-gender. What the hell is pan-gender? They're just coming up with this crap. Pan-gender means you can have sex and you're sexually attracted to anything.
Yeah, you could.
They're just this crap. It's insanity. And look, okay, maybe this is like an archetype. Maybe they are trying to put out the perception so it becomes reality, but they are on the slick inducing this stuff with all of the chemicals in the plastics and in the waters that we all know there's xenoestrogens in the milk. There's xenoestrogens in 70% of the plastics, which they could easily take it out of, and that is affecting the babies in the womb. And so, yes, there are some gene manipulations, DNA manipulation that is happening that are driving people from birth now, you know, at record numbers to become homosexual and to become transgender. So that is true.
I mean, listen, what are they trying to distract us from? That's the question. What are they trying to distract us from?
And that's another point, Goyim, is that's just, it's like multifaceted. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you know, it's like killing two birds with one stone. They get to distract us, and you know, and they get to dehumanize us.
Well, yeah, I mean, go ahead, Caleb.
Sorry, do you guys know that this whole entire issue was started by a guy named Chad Severance in North Carolina? He's actually a convicted, registered sex offender.
That's right. That's right.
And he's guys been pushing for all this stuff about that they should allow men to be able to use women's restrooms. And then you have in Salon Magazine, that they're a resident pedophile, Todd Nickerson, came out with a 5-minute video in which he's fantasizing, drooling over this 5-year-old girl dancing around in a dress while he's masturbating while thinking about her. It's like they're obviously trying to mainline this pedophilia stuff.
If I was to catch that bastard by my daughter, I would drag him from behind my truck.
Well, looks like that Catholic school you sent her to, Nathan, is Pope Francis approved.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, the songs say it themselves. I mean, I sadly, my old lady dragged me to the Rihanna concert. They're like, throw your diamonds in the air. The social engineering and social programming in the songs tells you the world's about to blow. Bring the fire, burn it up. We're going to let it burn, burn, burn. And everything you're seeing, whether it's somebody peeping over your child's stall or the protests going on in California right now at these Trump rallies, whether he's co-opted or not, I tell you what, he is the lightning rod that is ushering in a lot of civil unrest. But back to the LGBT red herring, in my opinion, it's feeding that fire and chaos that they want. on a different level.
Hey, real quick, and we didn't mean to cut you off, Caleb. Look, let's hurry up and take this call up.
We got an important.
Yeah,
we got
real
a call.
quick. Go ahead, Phil. Line 1. Go ahead. You got a minute. Go
Phil
ahead,
the
brother.
Patriot.
Phil the Patriot. Listen,
I'm sorry, Phil.
Thank you.
This is Phil the Patriot. I know y'all saw it on TV, and I saw it myself. Barack Obama is now going to rearm the Viet Cong. What's next? They're going to give bullets and bombs to the North Koreans? Brothers and sisters,
he did that already.
All right. The Battle of New Orleans people, they're right. Jeff Correa, they're right. We're all being attacked every possible way they can think of. They're coming after our bathrooms. They're coming after our children. And I am completely and totally convinced that all homosexuals and lesbians love to seduce little boys and girls. As a matter of fact, a few weeks ago, I was at a local diner eating, and three ugly men dressed as women, got right behind us in the stall behind us. And some of the things they were talking about, I cannot say on the radio stations. All I can tell you right now is they like them young, and they like to break them in. And I can tell you this new thing they're doing where they're going to have transgender bathrooms, they're going to start seducing our children in those bathrooms. They're going to molest them, they're going to rape them, and they're even going to murder some of them. I can tell you one of the reasons why this is happening right now. America tolerated abortion too much. First, it was dozens of children being murdered every day inside the woman's room. If they're not safe inside the woman's room, they're safe nowhere. None of us are safe. Then it was hundreds. Then it was thousands. Then it was tens of thousands. Now it's millions. The same thing is going to happen in the bathrooms. They're going to seduce little boys and little girls. They're going to molest them. They're going to rape them.
I got your candy, little Charlie.
I saw your Lulu.
No, I can tell you right now, I have a lot of family. And if I ever catch one of those people touch one of my family or friends, I'm going to execute them. Yeah!
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate that honesty. Early on in the show, we didn't even give the number out. I guess we're on speed dial with him. But listen, I have a child in the womb right now. I'm not that worried about this being an issue. I mean, right now you're seeing a major push leading up to the election of chaos, fear, hatred, distraction. You name it. And like the song said, you go listen to your top 40 songs, let it burn, let it burn. And it's telling you, it's just leading up to more of this chaos and chaos.
Right before the summer. Look, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to a break. You listen to Battle of New Orleans Radio right here at 990 AM WGSO. When we get back, Mr. Caleb Hitt has a report on the current banking situation. So we'll look forward to that, and we'll have Mr. Scott Bennett on about 7:30.
And we stand for peace and love. But if they bustin', then we gotta bust back. Spreading knowledge, that's how we bust back. Minimizing, that's how we bust back. They attack us, so we strapped up if we have to. We gon' clap on self-defense, gives us a right to bust. The government wanna keep us in the trap. The first thing they do is they come from our straps. They want us defenses against their attacks. They dumbing us down with ignorant crap. They bustin' at us and we bustin' right back. Not talking about violence, talking about speaking out against tyrants, breaking the silence, being defiant, minimizing our contribution to the system. This is one solution.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. You're listening to Battle of New Orleans Radio. That was Diesel Automatic Bust Back. Got me wanting to bust back. You can't trust the government.
I know.
You trust the government, Goy?
Not really, no.
What about you, Caleb? You trust the government?
No way.
All right. He said no way. Look, Caleb, we'll go ahead. Before we bring our guests on the next segment, go ahead and do your report on the banking system.
Well, I know 2 weeks ago we had James Perloff on, and I was trying to ask him about the SDRs. I got it's actually special drawing rights. I think I said I got the term wrong. I think I said strategic drawing rights or something. But at any rate, I know as of October the 1st, the Chinese Yuan is going to be added into the IMF's International Monetary Fund's special drawing rights global currency basket, and that'll be along with the U.S. dollar, the euro, the British pound sterling, and the Japanese yen. But obviously, there's been a great growing, as everybody knows, there's been a growing trend in recent years and loss of confidence in the U.S. dollar around the world, of course, and different countries wanting to step away from that, of course. And actually, I think the surprising thing, or unsurprisingly, is even U.S. Treasury and also the United States Treasury officials and Fed officials are actually going along with this SDR movement. They're actually betraying the U.S. dollar themselves. But anyway, I think what this really means, remember what these special drawing rights really are. It was created in 1969, and by the International Monetary Fund, as I said. But at any rate, if you remember, it's basically acts as a global currency in which different countries can trade with each other as far as foreign exchanges are concerned. But anyway, if you remember some months ago, when our stock market, there was sort of like a mini
shake, yeah, towards the end of the year, right? Maybe like around November, December.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So when that happened, what's everybody talking about in the news? Everybody suddenly is talking about the Chinese, what they're doing with the what they were devaluing their yuan, and that was actually dictated to the Chinese by the International Monetary Fund as one of the conditions that needed to be met in order for the yuan to be included in this global currency basket, of course. So obviously the yuan's been gaining in its regard has been increasing globally and with the IMF, of course. So anyway, my prediction is that on October the 1st, I believe it's going to cause another shakeup in the stock market. And I think at the very least, we're going to see another mini crash. I'm going to say at least by 500 points. If not, it could be maybe possibly even 1,000 points. I'm not sure about it'll be that much, but it'll be on October 1st. And who knows, there might be a cascade effect over the next 2 or 3 days. I'm sure there'll probably be some kind of a rebound, though.
Well, Caleb, you look now, I believe it was last week, the Soros Fund, they were dumping a lot of their stocks. And you see Soros, he began to become real bullish on gold. I wonder if that has, any effect on that.
Well, who knows? I mean, I know that even the Chinese and the Russians they've been hoarding up on gold themselves.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, look, the as far as the world economy goes, there's nothing left. Okay, they've engineered everything and bankrupted every nation. I mean, look, even China that holds most of our debt, it's bankrupt. I mean, they're sitting in the middle of the largest real estate bust in history. They have whole cities in China that are empty. Okay, I mean, there really isn't any money left in any of these countries.
Well, I know the yuan, it was before they devalued it. I mean, it was propped up just like the U.S. dollar is now. They had to allow for a so-called market correction, and that's why it dropped in value all of a sudden, because it wasn't worth as much as what it was propped up to be.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you got a situation where, what was it, right when Barack got elected or before he got elected and Bush's final few months in office, they had the crash, the major crash, I think, was that 2008. And, it'd be a perfect time, like you said, Caleb, because think about it, beginning of October, people are distracted, obviously, with football in America, but on top of that, you're going to be right there at that moment where everyone's like, who is it going to be? Is it going to be Trump or Hillary? Like, it's going to be like cheering for another sports team. Like, who's going to do it? So, I mean, it's just going to be very similar, and it's going to be pretty easy for them to pull that off and with very little fanfare.
Yeah. Look, we're coming to a break. When we come back from break, we have whistleblower, the Second Lieutenant, Mr. Scott Bennett, who will be joining us. He was on with us at the end of December. It was a very, very powerful interview. I mean, this guy has some explosive information that just proves the whole war on terror is a sham. Quit buying into it. Turn off that faux news network. Turn off the communist news network. They are feeding us lies to try to keep us in perpetual fear.
Don't forget the HBO channel, Hebrew Box Office. We got Michael J. Anderson on as well. We'll be right back. Battle of New Orleans Radio.
Stand for my position, I am a voice unto the voiceless, and I will fight for my convictions. We attack with our tactics, never bend the knee to these bastards. From the crooked cops to these pastors, wanna step defeat or disaster. As I journey for my people to the pilgrimage, following the voice of the wilderness. ashes were falling down. Slaves to the men that stole the crown. There's a warning sign like a blazing sun. You don't wanna see because you're having fun. Those who control all the information celebrate and lie to the people to keep them watching.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. You're listening to Battle of New Orleans Radio right here on 990 AM WGSO in the heart of the Crescent City. Look, man, ladies and gentlemen, you know, the audience out there, if you like what you hear here, please help us stay on air. This show, you know, we put our heart and soul into this show, you know, financially as well. So, look, please support us. Go to battlenola.com. Hit that donate button. It's $1, $2, $1 a month, anything, man. You know, this show costs us a ton of money in advertisement. You know, as soon as we pick a new advertiser up, we lose two. So, look, please help us out. Please help us stay on air.
All your shekels help right now. You know, right now, me and Nathan are going to work. We're trying to make it to the studio in time. We're taking open auditions. If there's someone who likes what we say, we're not trained professionals at all. We stutter. We you know, we butt heads. We don't know. We're not journalist majors or nothing like that. So if anybody's listening, they want to be a part of this, contribute, and be in studio with us around the New Orleans area, call up 504-556-9696 during a commercial break. Talk to myself or Nathan, and we'll keep this thing going. You know, just like Kiss says, when Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley die, they want the band to keep going. And you know, not saying we're going to die or anything, but we want there to be an outlet for us to have people like Scott Bennett, Michael J., whistleblowers. We've had Black Panthers on here. We've had Dr. David Duke. You name it. We will allow people to express their First Amendment right, and we want to continue that. So go ahead, Nathan, introduce our guests.
Yeah, well, real quick before I bring them on, this is the only show like this in the New Orleans area, and 990 AM WGSO is the only station that will allow us to do this, because everything else is owned by a bunch of corporate whores. Okay, look. We'll bring our guests on. All right, Scott Bennett is a U.S. Army Special Operations Officer, the 11th Psychological Operations Battalion, Civil Affairs Psychological Operations Command, and is a global psychological warfare counterterrorism analyst. Formerly with the defense contractor Booz Allen Hamilton, that's the same one Snowden was with, he received a direct commission as an officer, held a top secret, sensitive, compartmentalized information security clearance, and worked in the highest levels of international counterterrorism in Washington, D.C. in the District of Criminals, and MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida. He has developed and managed psychological warfare theories, products, operations for the U.S. Special Operations Command, U.S. CENTCOM, the State Department, and coordinator for counterterrorism and other government agencies. That's a hell of a bio right there. And he was also persecuted, and the government, you know, made him pay for that. So, Scott, are you on air with us?
I am, my friend, and I'm honored to be with you. And you remind me that you don't need to be a professional soldier to win a war. Most of our founding fathers were farmers and people that didn't wear a uniform, but they jumped into the fight and they threw off one of the greatest forces of oppression in the history of humanity, the British Empire. So you guys are occupying the position of Minutemen.
I appreciate it. And listen, real quick, Scott, my father left the communist regime, former Yugoslavia. What's funny is I've talked to him, and he's like, oh, yeah, I was a little boy. I saw the whole dinar collapse. We had a barrel full of the currency right after World War II. Luckily, we had some silver, and I was able to eat. And he relocated here. He was in a refugee camp. You name it. The interesting thing is when I bring that back up to him now, he's successful like a lot of immigrants who came here, worked hard, blah, 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 pulled himself up, 6th grade education. I explained this fiat currency, Federal Reserve System. I'm like, Dad, that currency's not worth anything, just like you experienced. You've been through it before. You saw it collapse. You sat at home hungry that night. And he still, it's amazing, actually. He doesn't really even get it. He thinks he's protected with this American dollar because the way he sees it is like, no, it can't happen to America. But it can, and it is from an inflationary standpoint, because look at the inflation levels right now. Just shows you the quantitative easing, the central banks, how much control they have when they have control of your currency.
Yeah. Yeah, and we see the manifestation of that in certain military foreign policy operations, including the liquidation of Libya and Gaddafi for its gold separate separation from the petrodollar agenda. The powers that be couldn't tolerate that, so they went in and killed him. You also had other countries that were manifesting that. I think another offshoot is the BRICS economic organization that has began to erect itself. All of that is in opposition to this U.S. petrodollar hegemony empire, because it's one thing to be part of an empire that gives you food, bread, circuses, happiness, little kittens, whatever it is. And then it's something quite different to be part of an empire that's full of pornography, destruction, lasciviousness, homosexuality,
misogyny,
transgenderism.
Cultural Marxism is what you're getting at, right, Scott?
I say again?
Cultural Marxism, basically.
Cultural Marxism, the persecution of any belief in wholesomeness or conservative mores or anything like that is suddenly painted as an enemy of the religion worship of state.
Okay, and you were bringing up Libya. Okay, the situation, the destabilization of Syria, and me and Nathan were talking before the show. It seems like they're now culling the target of Iran, the John Kerry and whatnot. Is it because these are resistors of these central banks and they're pushing for these resistors of these globalists and currency manipulators?
I think that's the real hand in the glove. I think that's the real the writing on the wall. As we've seen, the CIA manages its global conflicts and coups d'etats based on economic hegemony, based on the rule of the dollar and the global corporate expansionism. So all of these coups d'etats in Ukraine and Libya and Iraq, in Syria, all of that has been driven by this obsession to control the world's resources and money supplies. And it's quite honestly, it's one of the things that you see being manifested behind the Panama Papers scenario. The Panama Papers was never an anonymous leak. I mean, that material, I strongly suspect, was originally the material that Brad Birkenfeld gave in 2007. And then I gave it again in 2012 when I discovered it through Birkenfeld, because much of the names and the people are the same ones that Brad Birkenfeld brought. And the real law firm is Covington and Burling, not Mossack Fonseca. So the Panama Papers essentially, and Brad has called it a CIA operation. He's right in that. The Panama Papers has consolidated the United States as the new Switzerland for attracting money. So when you're talking about the banksters and this all of these financial shenanigans that are going on, what better monopolization operation than to attract the world's money into the United States? Leave Switzerland, leave all these other countries, and set yourselves up in nonprofit status tax havens in Nevada. That's essentially what seems to be the fruit of the Panama Papers.
Yeah, that's a good point, Scott. Hey, Scott, could you, with some of the newer listeners that didn't listen to the last interview, you brought up Brad Birkenfeld. Could you just give a quick summary of who he is and how you came to play into this whole situation, and maybe bring on our other guest, Michael J. After that?
Well, my background was in the Bush administration from 2003 to 2008. Then I joined Booz Allen Hamilton as a defense contractor when the Bush administration was coming to a close, and I was the liaison officer at State Department Counterterrorism Special Operations Command, and then went down to U.S. Central Command at MacDill Air Force Base, tracking terrorist money supplies. And my boss was Dov Zakheim, who was the comptroller of the Pentagon during the $2.3 trillion audit. And Dov Zakheim had a son, Roger Zakheim, who worked at the House Armed Services Committee. And this comes into a weird connection later because, this is a drama. It's almost right out of a Shakespearean novel, but you couldn't make it up. And I find myself in the middle of this tempest. And Dov Zakheim, my boss, is running the Booz Allen Hamilton terrorist finance operation at U.S. Central Command. And I start filing papers and reports and protests, and my job was in charge of Saudi Arabia. So I knew every bank and operative and financier in Saudi Arabia that was giving money to the Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Wahhabi, Sunni Salafist terrorist regimes. And the next thing you know, and I'm a trumpet, I'm a blowhard, I'm someone that doesn't take prisoners. I don't back down. I do my job. I don't play patty cake football. I tackle, and I don't take prisoners. And I've always been that way as a temperament. But I went into government. I went into the military to serve my country. I didn't go in to get a job. I didn't get a career. I didn't go in for money. I went in to finish the wars and then go back home and raise my crops. And I found myself being dogpiled on and suddenly fake charges that were construed against me using a paperwork error from a housing form that I filled out. Well, that was turned into a felony. And I thought it was a training operation. I thought it was going to be thrown out. I thought I was being prepared by the CIA for deployment. No, they had meant it as an actual charge. And the next thing I know, I'm thrown in prison. And I couldn't believe it. I'm filing an appeal. I'm mad as hell. And I run into the Swiss banker. And the Swiss banker was Brad Birkenfeld. And the Swiss banker told me, Scott, this is who I am. I was a Swiss banker. I came over from Switzerland. The CIA were after me. They got me into a DUI. Later on, Edward Snowden told the exact same story. So Edward Snowden comes into the mix. And I said, Brad, I can't believe it. You're the guy I was looking for. You have all the Swiss banks that were coming out of Saudi Arabia. That was my job, was tracking that money supply down. How come I didn't see you? How come I didn't get this? He said, Eric Holder and Lanny Brewer forbid me from sharing this with any military. And he gave me the bank account, and it was Abdullah Aziz, a Saudi royal member family. And he said, get this out. So we took that bank account, sent it up to the U.S. Central Command, to the military, to the Congress, and they refused to do anything. They refused to investigate it. They refused to do anything that would stop the money supply being channeled from the Saudis to these terrorists. And of course, this is also part of the 28 pages. All of these Saudi bank accounts in Union Bank of Switzerland, HSBC, Abdullah Aziz, all these other Saudi names and royal family, all of that is contained to a large degree in the 28 pages. But Brad Birkenfeld was the Swiss banker that brought all that together, and he met me in prison, and we filed this, and it basically blew the roof off of the house when it comes to Hillary Clinton and Eric Holder and Lanny Brewer, because... Hey,
Scott, hold that thought. We're coming to a break. We'll finish up when we come back. You're listening to Battle of New Orleans Radio. We'll be right back.
Sit back and watch. I do what you're supposed to. What can I get with 2.3 trillion? When does a citizen become a civilian? When did the heroes morph into the villains? How can two planes cauterize 3 buildings? These are questions that could get you murked, politically, socially, physically put into the dirt. Many swear.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. You're listening to Battle of New Orleans Radio, and that song is Payday Monsanto, Under Control. And I wanted to play that because Scott Bennett was talking about Dov Zakheim, and Payday Monsanto is talking about the same character wanting to know where's the $2.3 trillion that come up missing.
Dual citizen.
Yeah, you don't remember? Everybody remember Donald Rumsfeld the day before 9/11? Oh, where's the $2.3 trillion? It just come up missing. But it was more than $2.3 trillion. It was between $4 to $5 trillion that come up missing under Dov Zakheim's watch up until 2004. Where's the Senate hearings? Where's the investigations? We have a foreign citizen that just sucked trillions of dollars. And the only people that could figure out and count the money and knew where it went, guess what? What happened to them? What happened with them, Glenn? Oh, nothing. That's right. They died in 9/11. They moved them. They moved them to the exact location that missile hit. Yes, I said missile. Show me the plane. Somebody call up and show me where the plane hit that building. The most secure building in the world, and there's not one video? Get out of my face.
Hey, Scott, really quickly, what's the connection? This is a side topic, but what's the connection between Saudi Arabia and Israel? are they like close allies in all of this, and everyone else is the enemies of that pact, and then the United States is kind of linked in on that? Because I mean, listen, I'm not that knowledgeable on this, but it seems to me that everyone, Iran, Afghanistan, Iraq, we destabilized that on behalf of Saudi Arabia and Israel, and then the connections, this Dove guy, the dual citizen Israeli Americans, laundering money, this and that, money's disappearing. It just seems like Saudi Arabia and Israel is pushing their agenda in the Middle East. And now you have a situation where, we talk a lot about Zionism and globalism and the relocation of Muslims out of the desert. And it seems like they would be the beneficiaries of this destabilization, whether it be war or by relocating in a way their enemies. But it's funny because I was talking to Michael J. during the break, the Christian evangelicals, they seem to think that Saudi Arabia is the enemy. But to me, it seems like politically they're one step in tow with Israel, from what I could tell.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. There's even genetic closeness and connection and a cousinry dimension. There's a blood dimension and a connection to them. Besides the old patriarch connection to Hagar, being the wife of Abraham, and her son, the wild donkey of a man that came out later. Besides that, there are other connections. I'll put you in touch with a couple really smart guys on the issue that know it more intrinsically than I do. Scott Ricard is a former Air Force analyst, intelligence guy, and he knows everything really that deals with a lot of that. And I think he'd be delighted to come on and talk with you. Of course, Jim Fetzer knows a lot about it too. So I'm always glad to be part of the community of thinkers that talk about this, because we come from different backgrounds, but we're all saying the same thing. We all have an inquisitive mind. We all have an open heart, and we all speak the truth, and regardless of where it leads and regardless of what it is. That's the only thing that matters, is the truth. You're either for the truth or you're for the lie. There is no in between. You're either boldly proclaiming the truth, fearlessly proclaiming the truth, and letting the light shine, or you are a coward and a parasite and you are working to undermine the truth, which means you're an enemy of the truth. And as far as I'm concerned, that means you're an enemy of mine, and you're worthy of nothing but destruction. So we see some very, very deep lines being drawn, and you're either on the side of right and truth, or you're on the side of deception and lies. But the Israeli political alliance with Saudi Arabia has been there for a long time. It's been there since 1924, when the original founder of Saudi Arabia had written a letter to one of the high-up Zionist elements saying that he had no problem with a Jewish-Israeli homeland coming to Palestine. So that dates us back to the 1920s. And of course, World War I and the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire and all that, sort of ushered in the modern Israeli state, founded on terrorism. They were blowing stuff up back in the 40s, and of course they've had this agenda to destabilize the rest of the region, and that's part of the 9/11 issue. Is you've got a destabilization strategy to liquefy Iraq, Libya, Egypt,
Iran
Syria,
next,
and they've been trying to do that using the U.S. military, using the United States blood and treasure, and that's where 9/11 came in. That was the trauma-based mind control, and Mike can talk a lot about that. Mike came on from the Vietnam era, so the first false flag was the Vietnam War that Mike fought in. So he's got a kinship and a connection to our generation, because we suffered the lie of 9/11. We suffered a Twin Tower evaporation into powder and dust. That's impossible from a scientific standpoint with regards to a plane. Nathan, I drove by the Pentagon when I was going to Catholic University doing my doctorate, and I'll never forget that, because I saw a big blue tarp over the Pentagon, but nothing else. No wreckage, no torn up ground, no burning, no yellow tape, nothing.
No questions either. The sad part is no questions from the majority of people. When we get back from the break, we want to hear Michael J's testimony on his Vietnam experience. I have some questions about that. Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, all these wars are false flags. They bring us in all these wars on lies. It's total ridiculous. You know, the military has become, you know, the globalist police force. It's not here to protect us, I hate to say. Now, I definitely support, you know, all the troops that are brave enough to put that uniform on. I definitely support and respect you for that. But just understand, what you are serving is not what you've been told you're serving. When we come back from this break, we're bringing Mr. Michael J. We appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to Battle of New Orleans Radio. Look, call us up, 504-556-9696. Call us up. We want to hear from you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. You're listening to Battle of New Orleans Radio. We have special guest, Mr. Scott Bennett and Michael J. on Skype with us. Go ahead, Scott. I'm going to turn it over to you. Please bring on Mr. Michael J. Please intro him.
Well, Michael J. is a great friend and a great ally and a co-host with me on some of the discussions that we do on Chip Tatum's network and Kerry Cassidy's project Camelot TV. And Michael is a powerful Christian man with great insight that he's derived from his experiences in Vietnam and combat and discovering, you know, God in his life has led him through some miraculous deliverance. And I'll let him tell the stories of vipers and snakes and seeing grenades where no other men saw them and being delivered as a tank driver and avoiding being blown up and seeing other men blown up and being delivered from panthers and crocodiles and things that would cause most men's hearts to faint. They caused Mike's heart to grow faithful and very strong in his love of truth in America. So when he and I met and shared our backgrounds and our lives and truths, we came away with, you know, we were formed as a team to do some great work for our country, for our people, and to share our lives and wisdom with others, such as yourself, Nathan, and your platform for telling stories and telling truth for the benefit of all Americans and all mankind, because you are going out as an international, you know, voice. So, without further ado, I'll just introduce Michael J. and let him join the conversation and answer your questions, Nathan. Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Nathan and Caleb. It's a real pleasure. I tell people I won the lottery in 1970, and they look surprised. They say, really? I said, yes, I was number 16 in the lottery. They gave me all expenses paid trip to Vietnam in the infantry. And the reality was I didn't find out until after Vietnam, after I served in 4 different combat units in Vietnam, because Nixon was standing us down, and I still had enough time in country to be sent forward to another unit, always winding up to be the new guy. But the reality was I was a Christian there praying for my enemies. And I found out later on that the Gulf of Tonkin never happened. It was manufactured by Robert McNamara and Mr. Johnson. And Johnson was involved in the assassination of President Kennedy because he was going to pull us out of Vietnam. But we didn't understand that back then. We were just, you know, draftees. But the reality is that I went there as a Christian. I had been turned to God. And prior to that, I didn't know that I had been involved in a CIA experiment that spanned America, that derived from a Nazi conglomerate called IG Farben in their partnership with the Rockefellers during World War II. And out of IG Farben came groups like Bayer, Merck Sharp and Dome, Klein, Smith, and Sandoz Corporation that gave us lysergic acid diethylamide. This was introduced by some psychologists, one of which was Timothy Leary. I don't know if you guys remember, turn on, tune in, and drop out. Mm-hmm. But that guy was a real nutbar. And he was making huge strides with respect to the help of the media and broadcasting the benefits of sorcery, pharmakia, with using lysergic acid diethylamide. And I had been running away from the Vietnam draft and trying my hand with a little alternative reality with the help of LSD. And I became demonized. Yes, demons, invisible entities are very real, and they were trying to kill me. And God allowed this to bring me to the place where I would call on his name, and he revealed himself to me in October 1968. So 2 years later, in the same month, I landed in Vietnam in the infantry, but wind up driving a tank in the 1st unit. And in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th unit, I was in the 23rd Division, Marcal. And my life was filled with miracles. But the reality of coming back in the middle of that kind of strange welcoming, if you will, for Vietnam veterans coming back, not the kind that we had watched in old videos about people like Audie Murphy and other people coming back to a hero's welcome. It was very strange back then in the 70s. And then I saw Vietnam pull out and a huge vacuum created, just like we've done in Iraq, just like we've done in Syria. This vacuum was created, and the communists came in and slaughtered millions in Cambodia, slaughtered millions in South Vietnam. And by the way, our president, our counterfeit male White House offering was over there in Vietnam, making friends with the communists and mass murderers, because birds of a feather rather, flock together. And the reality of this is that America from the 60s and 70s was subjected to massive mind control and programming, sponsored by a group called the Tavistock Institute and Wellington House, that changed the whole culture. We went from mother, God, love, country, and apple pie to sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And this was a part of, let's say, social engineering designs that were introduced by a group of people brought over here under operation called Operation Paperclip. A bunch of Nazis brought over here by Sergeant Heinrich Kissinger. Yes, that same old dirtbag. Henry Kissinger brought them over here and gave them all new identities so that they could go into NASA and go into the CIA and produce a bunch of mind control programs called MK Ultra and teach the American CIA and military how to create mind-controlled sex slaves and assassins. So that's the background of my waking up and realizing that the people running America, and what, by the way, all of our wars since the early 1900s were sponsored on both sides by the central banks of Europe, including the Rothschild banks and the Vatican Bank and the banks that came over here, the Federal Reserve, and have been sponsoring both sides of our wars. Let me cap it off with this, that the largest oil refinery in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War was in North Vietnam in Haiphong Harbor, and it sponsored the North Vietnamese in the war, and that was the Exxon refinery. Back to you guys.
Wow. Wow, that's
A lot of
powerful
good information.
Yeah, powerful testimony. I'm so over you're talking, and I'm just shaking my head like, yeah. I mean, it's crazy. We put Mao Zedong in power, which he went on to kill almost 80 million peasant farmers and people in his own country. The CIA put him in power in 1949.
Pentagon.
Yes.
That's right. The help of the man who designed the Pentagon, George Marshall, designed the Pentagon, and he was the one that betrayed Chiang Kai-shek and put Mao Zedong in power, gave them all the captured munitions of Manchuria that the Japanese had, and he slaughtered millions of Chinese with the help of our State Department. Now, this should make Americans ashamed, brother. By the way, I'm looking at this reality of Cajun patriotism down there. I think you should invite the Senate and the Congress down to New Orleans for a remake of that movie. What was that called? That wonderful movie in the middle of the swamp.
It's lost.
Not talking about Waterboy. Listen, Deliverance. Yeah. Well, that was Georgia.
Deliverance, and we're going to star all the Congress. And
Michael J. We appreciate it, man. Listen,
people from Louisiana, hallelujah, a little payback for Hurricane Katrina. Amen.
Amen. Listen, right now we're dealing with the situation with our monuments, our Confederate monuments, our history here, where people like George Soros, his real last name Schwartz, Trilateral Commission, the Southern Poverty Law Center are really pushing to remove these monuments ever since the shooting, the Dylan Roof shooting.
Before the shooting, a month before the shooting.
Yeah, and then, since the shooting, they've said we got to take all the Confederacy history down.
Louisiana patriots need to guard them with weapons.
Well, listen, as I'm driving, as I'm driving to the studio today, Michael J. and Scott, somebody spray painted on it, "Take them down now." We're going to put that picture in the YouTube upload for this episode so you guys can check it out when we get it on there. But it just strikes you as it's just a nonstop, barrage and attack on the situation. But like Michael J was saying, like all that stuff he was talking about and Scott Bennett was talking about, and I coined it cultural Marxism, with the misogyny, the breakdowns of families. And we were talking about earlier in the show, like people aren't even getting married anymore because they're either the men are too scared to lose everything they have, or, and they're all hugging their dogs and cats on Facebook, and that's replaced boyfriends and girlfriends and wives and husbands. But
let's address this. Did you guys know that marriage is illegal in America?
It seems like it is. I mean, the incentives.
It is illegal because you have to have a license. A license is permission from a competent authority to do what would otherwise be illegal. But guess what? There's another way. It's called coverture. In America, we used to take our Bible down because in the front it had marriages, births, and deaths. And you put your name there. You have the minister there. You have witnesses there. And you don't ask permission from the state to do what God told you to do. And you're legally and lawfully married without all that state regulation to take everything away from you when your wife or your spouse suddenly decides that he needs to upgrade.
I'm about to get married soon, so I'm going to have to look into that. That sounds a lot cheaper, actually, Michael J.
Called coverture.
I like sounds like it's a good price, but go ahead, Nathan. Looks like we're coming to a break.
Coming to a break, man. This is a great conversation. Look, we have a call. We're going to take Joseph. Oh, he hung up? Joseph from Metairie, please call back. I want to talk to you. Is this the professor? Call back. Okay, look, our number's 504-556-9696. You listen to Battle of New Orleans right here. And look, ladies and gentlemen, this is the battlefield. There is a war, and this war is spiritual, and they're trying to attack and just kill our soul, okay? Because the end game of this whole dehumanization program is death. They want to depopulate the planet and go, off this planet. So look, if you think I'm crazy, go do your homework yourself. You'll find the same conclusions. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. You're listening to Battle of New Orleans Radio right here on 990 AM WGSO. But before I get back to Scott Bennett and Michael J. and Caleb Hitt and Goyam, I want to bring up something that everybody needs to go read. We need to know where our money's going. Go read the National Defense Authorization Act of 2017. You can go read the bill summary. You just search NDAA 2017 bill summary and go read where all of the money is going. Okay, we had $3.4 billion for Afghani security forces. Okay, we got $1.3 billion for consolidated funding in Jordan. We have $3.4 billion European reassurance. We have $500 million in security assistance to Ukraine. So really, you know what that $500 million's for? We have Nazis we put in place in Ukraine to help keep that whole situation stirred up on Russia's doorstep there. So that's where that $500 million going.
$239 million for U.S.-Israeli Cooperative Missile Defense Program. There's a long list of U.S.-Israeli...
including $135 million increased support, continued development of the Arrow 3,
Dome,
David Sling, another $42 million for Israel, another $50 million for Israel, another, and there's, I don't have it in front of me, but I want to say it was $750 million for the Syrian moderate forces. So, we know who the Syrian moderate forces are. That is ISIS. We're using ISIS as the stabilization force over there to take out, Assad, because you were talking about earlier, Goyam.
They're resisting the central bank.
They're resisting the central bank. And you know what? It's that Syria was a very pro-Christian country. 20% of the population in Syria were Christian. I mean, Assad wasn't killing Christians. We only go into countries where Christians are allowed to walk the streets. Then we love Saudi Arabia. Well, Saudi Arabia is great. You know what I'm saying? They behead people. They kill all homosexuals. They throw them off buildings. We love Saudi Arabia. Not a problem.
Nathan, really, before we go to the line, we have a call on the line. But Scott and Michael J., what's your take? How much do you guys think we give in foreign aid? Can we put a number on how much the United States gives in taxpayer dollars in foreign aid to Israel every year, if you were to take a guess?
Well, what the forecast you said before, I think it was $6 billion. I think you're around the neighborhood there. Mike, do you have any numbers on that?
I had heard as high as 11 billion, but the thing is, we need to factor in what you found out in that course called Deep Black. The reason why we were in Southeast Asia and now in Afghanistan is the trillions of dollars of heroin and opium they're bringing out of there for their black budgets. I mean, they'll take money from the taxpayer or get us more into debt, but they're not running out of money. They've got trillions.
Yeah, we got a print and press. They'll just print up some more. You know, let's go to Richie on line one. Richie, how you doing tonight? Welcome to Battle of New Orleans. Appreciate you calling, man. How you doing, brother?
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to ask the two guests, Mr. Bennett, Michael J. I've been listening in very interesting conversation. What is your opinion of the Frankfurt School and the influence that it had on the United States after they saw the writing on the wall and skedoodled out of Germany prior to the Second World War?
Well, you had that Frankfurt School. You know, one of the modern film depictions of that whole change in America is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Captain America, the Winter Soldier talks about Hydra infecting itself into the American intelligence apparatus. That's essentially what the Germans did in 1945 when they came over and changed all of academia, changed all of the bureaucracies, changed a lot of the laws, and you had a metamorphosis in America that suddenly began to cultivate Leo Strauss's natural right, and the roots of neoconservatism took place, which was essentially Nazism. Neoconservatism is the end of history, the triumph of the Superman, which is defined as the oligarch, the smartest, the most ruthless in politics and business deserves to rule. And that's essentially Nazism. So I'd categorize it that way.
Well, no, this Frankfurt School they were expelled from Germany, from Nazi Germany, for bringing critical thinking and promoting the progressive, I guess you'd call enlightened, sexual, all those things you were describing came right out of the Frankfurt School, and they got here before the war started and ended up at Columbia University and
the home of technocracy,
and influencing all of the academia and the media, and the list of occupants on it reads like a Jewish wedding.
Yeah, no doubt.
So are you saying, brother, that this was the formation of the philosophy of the Weimar Republic that enfranchised all kinds of licentiousness then?
I suppose so, because Berlin was actually the decadent capital of the world prior to the Nazis taking over.
It was kind of Richie. It was what you're saying. It was kind of like Amsterdam is now.
Amsterdam or New Orleans. So
if you want to destroy a culture, you have to demoralize it.
Second World War brought us.
True, Michael.
Go ahead, Michael J. What was that last statement?
Well, I'm in agreement with the caller that if you want to destroy a culture, you have to demoralize it. You have to redefine the moral laws, just like this the Obama is trying to do in America right now.
And it's interesting, like Obama, a lot of people call him Muslim. But then like you guys say, you read the names of the people behind him, whether it's Chuck Schumer, Dianne Feinstein, Rahm Emanuel, Barney Frank, Al Frank, and all the supporters are predominantly like Zionist, globalist types. And we're not bagging on Zionism or Muslims. That you got good and bad on every group. It's just there's two sides of the coin in the Middle East. And in this case, I guess what Richie, the caller, is saying and Michael J is saying is that, you see a situation in Europe that was pushing for this cultural Marxism, secular progressivism. And I guess now it's in the United States in full. And it almost reads like you're joking, like almost like what, a bar mitzvah list or like a Schindler's List. It's like, it's sad, but it's true. And I think this might be why they've been persecuted so much, sadly, and been kicked out of, 109 countries. And it seems to create a lot of tension in the countries that this is created in.
People don't understand what happened when the Hebrew people were seduced away from the original Torah and the original faith of Abraham, identified in both the Old and New Testaments, and seduced into a religious system based on the Talmud that came out of Babylon. That kind of witchcraft, including the Talmudic book of the Kabbalah, was designed to actually be very seductive and introduce terrible kinds of immorality and sorcery, magic, and witchcraft.
Yeah, listen, really quick before we go to break, check out Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9 of the Bible, talking about the synagogue of Satan. A lot of Christian evangelicals think that that they're the chosen ones no matter what. Everyone's up for trial for sin and retribution.
We'll be right back.
Expressing this song are those of Diesel Automatic and millions of others worldwide, and are based on factual information available to the public. Nonetheless, skepticism is encouraged, and I highly recommend.
All right, we're back. Battle of New Orleans Radio with our guests Scott Bennett and Michael J. You know, before the last break, we were talking a lot about Judaism and Zionism. Again, though, you listen to any other social media outlet or any other radio station, and they're going to out and out be as quote-unquote racist as possible towards Muslims. And we're just trying to show you there's two sides of the coin in this, and that there's, you know, like we said, a fight for your mind over the fact that, you know, the Muslim population is basically getting demonized, and a lot of times for the wrong reasons. And again, you know, when you bring up the other side of the coin, people will say you're anti-Semitic or you're hateful, and we're just specifying things with fact. Again, if you have a question about it, feel free to call in and debate fact with us. We still have Richie on the line. It seems like. Richie, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I was curious. I kept hearing the Nazi connection, and I don't understand how your guests get that. Please explain, because Nazism was a national movement, strictly for the German people. And,
Richie, you're talking about in regards to them talking about the Frankfurt School?
No, they were talking about earlier about some of these. I can't remember exactly, but
Operation Paperclip, Richie.
Are you just saying that you were using Nazi technology, or they were trying to promote the Nazi philosophy, which was contrary to everything that you're saying these people are promoting? The Nazis were against all of that, so I don't understand this Nazi connection.
It's on record that they brought the Nazis over here and stuck them in every form of our government.
That's what I'm getting at, Nathan. Are they using Nazi technology, or are they using Nazi theory and Nazi philosophy? That's what I don't understand.
You know, one of the great persons that you should seek out is Martha Trowbridge. She has a blog, TerribleTruth.com, and you can follow her at Terrible Truth. And we had an interview with her today, and she's a expert on the Nazi connection to the modern Obama neoconservative cult in politics. And it's not a German ethnic thing at all. It's a government, godless, atheistic, attitude towards rule and government, as Francis Fukuyama and others have raised the impulses that we've seen in the Nazi in the Nazi ideology, which is essentially the state completely serving as the beacon of all existence for the society. But I won't try and explain Martha's position. She's an expert in it, and I think she could answer a lot of your questions. One of the other things I wanted to mention real quick, when you're talking about Muslims, you know, I've dealt with a lot of Iranians versus the Sunni Wahhabi Saudi Arabians, and what you're saying is right on the money, Caleb and Nathan. The Iranians are really the best people in the entire Muslim culture, because they're sophisticated. They don't rape boys. They don't cut people's heads off. They don't burn women alive or throw acid in their faces.
Scott, all the more reason for them to be destabilized, correct?
Oh yes, certainly.
They're a threat, just like an intelligent person's a threat.
The Iranians are Persians, aren't they? They're not Arabs.
Yeah, that's right. They're Persians. Yeah, they're very good, sophisticated people, as are the Russians. I mean, as are the Eastern Orthodox Russians. I just had a conversation with Senator Dick Black of Virginia, Nathan, and he was saying exactly what you're saying. He applauded the Syrians for rescuing Christians. He ran over and saw Assad. He shook his hand. He said, "Thank you for protecting Christians. Thank you, President Putin, for protecting Christians." And I can't tell you why we're backing Al-Qaeda. I can't tell you why President Obama is backing Al-Qaeda, the enemies of the United States. But I, as a senator, want to thank you. So there are good people in Congress who've got military backgrounds who are standing up saying what we are saying here. So there is hope.
Yeah, no doubt. Any last comments, Richie?
Yeah, I'd just like to get the name of that woman he recommended earlier, and to ask either panelist, are they familiar with Mark Weber's work?
I'm not. But the name is Martha Trowbridge, 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 Terrible Truth. She's a wonderful Christian woman, and her research is amazing, and you'll find out the true parentage of Obama, aka Bari Shabazz. You'll find out who he really is and the reason why he has 22 social security numbers and that he's a total fraud and construct of the CIA.
Yeah, absolutely. Richie, really appreciate you calling. Yeah, well,
Thank you.
Well, with Obama and the CIA, his grandparents were involved with OSS. I mean, his mother, CIA connections. You look at, his stepfather, the connections overseas. I mean, it's a joke, man. It's crazy. It's a really, everything's a sick joke. Everything they tell us is the opposite.
Yeah, and like Nathan's saying, and our last caller was questioning to our panelists, a lot of things get co-opted, like whether it's Nazism or the anonymous group or even Donald Trump. We've talked about this on the show multiple times. He might be the perfect lightning rod to usher in the civil unrest they need to take away our rights. You're seeing protests at his rallies. People are throwing rocks. They're getting more violent. Now people are coming out in video saying, if he's elected, we're gonna mow people down. We're gonna pull guns out. We talked about on a local level, and not to cut you off, Nathan. We have an out of control crime situation in New Orleans, similar to Detroit, similar to other areas. And you know what? New Orleans is a United Nations sanctuary city. It's Mitch Landrieu, our mayor, has ties with George Soros,
New World Order whore,
whatever you want to call it. United Nations Trilateral Commission Southern Poverty Law Center to remove these monuments. And we've talked about it, and we hear other stations around here, people are calling them, what are we going to do about crime? What are we going to do about it? Republicans, Democrats, whites, and blacks, all concerned, and he's letting it build up higher and higher, just like the civil unrest they want.
Dealt with, brother, by spiritual warfare, and people need to get back to God. We need to confess that this nation is a nation that practices child sacrifice and every kind of immorality, and we've rejected the commandments of God. We need the fear of God back in America because America didn't used to be like this.
You're
amen?
correct. You're amen. And listen, Michael, before we take another call, because it looks like we got one on the line, the mayor, I think, is looking away on purpose. To all the listeners, white or black, Democrat, Republican, or whatever you are, he's looking away on purpose to usher in the United Nations Small Arms Gun Ban Treaty that is being pushed upon the whole world.
Totally unconstitutional. If he does that, he's violating his oath and he needs to be removed.
But, Michael, yeah, I agree with you. And just like they're trying to remove the monuments, I agree with you. He should be removed. But the more murders that are on the streets, the more bloodshed people see on the news, the more likely the average citizen is going to willingly give up their rights. And these globalists know that. So when they talk to our mayor,
anybody that's willing to give up their rights doesn't deserve to have them, brother.
You're right.
I agree.
I mean, this is the valley of decision, and people are going to have to make a decision. Are they willing to be slaves, or are they willing to stand up for what's right and declare that rights do not come from government? They're unalienable. And I mean, he even gives a snake a right to defend itself. And we're more important to God than a bunch of snakes. Amen?
You're right. Amen. Listen, Michael, we got an important caller that might have the same vitriol that you have. Line 2. Phil. Phil, go ahead.
Phil the Patriot. Go ahead, Phil.
Hey, listen up, brothers and sisters. We can still win this thing. We have to do what the Bible says to do. The Bible says to wake up. It says to stand up. It says to rise up. And it says to wise up. It says to stand in every gap, watch every wall, rescue innocent, defend the helpless. It says to put on the full armor of God and the mind of Jesus Christ. And if you don't know how to do it, all you people got to do is open up your Bible. It's very cheap. It doesn't cost any money. Now, bullets and beans cost a lot of money. And I've been saving up a whole lot of bullets and beans because I just bought a brand new house and I have a second brand new car because I'm still living the American dream despite all those crazy idiots out there that try to destroy my country. Like the Blaming Fibril and John McConnell James and LB and the rest of the Satanic 666. Those people out there that's probably over at Chippendales right now.
That's our callers, by the way, Scott and Michael. That's typical callers who badmouth us. Go ahead, Phil.
Now, let me tell you. Don't pay no attention to them. They're radio propaganda terrorists. They're looking to tear down the United States of America. They're working for George Soros and MoveOn.org. So I can tell you what, brothers and sisters, I want to end with this. I'm going to give you all that little song. Happy chemtrails to you.
Happy chemtrails. Oh, thank you.
meet again.
A little seasoning on my barbecue.
Chemtrails to you. Keep smiling until then.
Phil, what's in those chemtrails anyways?
Super hurricanes, tornadoes, and tropical storms together. So happy trails, chemtrails to you. Until we meet and talk again. Yeah!
All right, Phil, thank you, man. A little chemtrail song for us. You know, Soros and move on.
You should get some pictures of the writing on the Georgia Guidestones.
Wow,
and
500
share that
million.
with the American people, and send a copy of it over to your mayor and say, how do you feel about this, mayor? They want genocide. Is that your program too?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Great points. And see, our mayor met. Look, I'm Catholic, right? Louisiana is a very Catholic state, 50%. I hate this communist scumbag Pope
Francis.
Oh God, he
totally cucking out open borders.
Mayor Landrieu met with him last year and developed this whole, and he was talking about global warming and resilient cities, which is Rockefeller Foundation program. And we see this week with the Pope. The Pope was saying Jesus is like ISIS. Give me a break. I mean,
he also said that he failed at the cross. This man is an antichrist and a fraud.
He's a Jesuit, right?
He's the last. Look, Leo Zagami wrote a book called The Last Pope. He predicted 10, 12 years ago that there was going to be a Jesuit Pope, and it was going to be the last Pope. And you see, look, because I wanted to bring this up. Michael J. talks about the Georgia Guidestones, and there it says it's going to be a one-world religion. You see them trying to marry Christendom with Islam. You see that.
With the direction of Zionism, you know, with the orchid, in my opinion, because again, in two senses, we said it time and time again. I've said it time and time again. My name's Goyim on the show. For Christ's sake, I mean, look at the situation. They're relocating Israel's enemies and Saudi Arabia's enemies out of the Middle East, destabilizing those countries on behalf of Israel. And at the same time, it's almost a sick and twisted payback. Look at Germany. Germany's 40% Muslim now. Hey, it's payback for 80 years ago, right? I mean, I don't see where a lot of Christian evangelicals, I think Michael J. was saying this during the break, why they think that these Chosenites are just guaranteed.
They've been deceived.
They've been
by
deceived.
John Hagee and company. Hey, Scott's got a really good insight of how that Russia can actually step in and help a failing Europe.
We're going to get back to that on the next break.
As soon as we come back, we're going to bring Scott on so he can discuss this. Look, I think Russia right now, Russia may be the last hope for European Christian people. And I've been saying this for a year now. Putin gets demonized because he's preaching pro-family. And if you put it on the faux news channel, which I hate Fox News because they deceive the conservative thinking people to keep them on the reservation, turn that garbage off. It is more dangerous than the communist news network because they keep thinking people on a reservation. Listen to Battle of New Orleans Radio. We'll be right back.
Enjoy fresh fruit grown in your yard. JohnnyAppleseedTrees.com delivers and installs fruit trees and fruiting vines to your home or condo. Proudly serving Kenner, Metairie, and New Orleans. Apples, apricots, blackberries, citrus, figs, grapes, peaches, pears, persimmons, plums, and raspberries. All the trees and fruiting vines are grown right here in South Louisiana. Check out the Fruit Tree Guide for more information and visit JohnnyAppleseedTrees.com today. It's a great time to plant. JohnnyAppleseedTrees.com.
Whether you're in the real estate market to buy, sell, lease, or looking for someone just to manage your properties, look no further than Paula Bourne with Plantation Properties. She has 34 years experience and is an expert of all of the latest programs available to homeowners. She has been my trusted realtor for years now. So please call Paula Bourne with Plantation Properties at 504-858-9293. That's 504-858-9293. Renovations Your Way. They renovate to fit your needs with complete customer service from start to finish that goes way beyond the job. With over 20 years experience, and they are fully insured, and they support the Battle of New Orleans Radio to unite the metro area in the fight for liberty.
Visit us on the web at renovationsyourway.com or call me, Daniel, at 985-402-5916. That's 985-402-5916. renovationsyourway.com. Mention you heard about us on Battle of New Orleans Radio and receive a 10% discount.
Does your house have a clogged up toilet, faulty electrical wires, or AC or heater just isn't blowing properly? Well, call Herman with Superior AC, Electrical, and Plumbing at 985-781-0418. Also specializes in new construction and covers the whole New Orleans metro area. So please, call our friend Herman with Superior AC, Electrical, and Plumbing at 985-781-0418. That's 985-781-0418. Here on the Battle of New Orleans Radio, we understand some of our listeners may not have teeth. But guess what? For the listeners that do have teeth, you need to go visit our friend, Dr. Sammy Tom with Uptown Dental. He's located at 8131 St. Charles Avenue in New Orleans, Louisiana, and you can visit him on the web at uptowndentalnola.com, or please call him up to set up your appointment at 504-304-6800. That's 504-304-6800. uptowndentalnola.com.
As the corporate media dies, MetroNow.com and TheDailyResistance.com continue to give you a decentralized and independent take on the latest current events as well as historical reference to help you wade through the propaganda of the prostitute media. Our mission is to inform the people of New Orleans about the issues of freedom, health, world events, and much more so that we as a community can thrive in the 21st century. Only with an informed public will we truly be free and independent. So take a look at MetroNow.com or TheDailyResistance.com as your independent news source.
From that day, division has increased across the land. Bloodshed and religion are both practiced hand in hand.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. You're listening to Battle of New Orleans Radio. Look, real quick before I bring Scott on so he can tell us about, maybe Russia, saving,
humanity.
Yeah, maybe being a beacon of hope here is that, look, we're looking for another host to come in studio and participate. So, look, email us. Look, email us at battlenola@gmail.com. You can call me up. This is my personal number, 985-640-8822. Call me up.
We want a like-minded. I met Nathan off the internet. I just showed up here as I come in the studio. Now I'm chipping in. We have bills to pay every month to keep this show going. If you care about this, I know we're talking about topics that a lot of people don't want to discuss or whatever. If you're knowledgeable, you have a passion, like I told you before, neither one of us have any training, any journalistic training, any radio experience besides this. We're just concerned citizens, like Scott says, the farmers and the revolutionaries save the country, this and that. That's us. We're not at that level, obviously. We're just pinching our pennies together, trying to keep the show going. When we could use a third. We really could.
Yeah. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I was just going to say, one thing I wanted to mention was when you're talking about kind of the Israeli connection, the dual Zionist, dual citizen connection, there is one very stark and blatant and throbbing example of treason that's been committed against all of us and all Americans, and that is Dov Zakheim, my boss, and his son, Roger Zakheim. Roger Zakheim worked at the House Armed Services Committee and buried the reports that I was sending up to his boss, Howard Buck McKeon, who was in charge of the Armed Services Committee. And then Roger Zakheim went to work for Covington and Burling, the law firm that represented these Swiss banks. So Roger Zakheim covered his dad's ass and went over to Covington and Burling and now shares an office with Eric Holder and Lanny Brewer and Michael Chertoff. You couldn't make it up, but right there, if I was in a court, I would charge and prosecute and convict those guys of treason based on Roger Zakheim covering up my reports, which exposed the terrorist financing UBS connection.
And Roger Zakheim and his father, Dov, are dual citizens, you were saying?
Dual Israeli citizens.
Wow.
That's right. Dual Israeli citizens. Now, no one in the United States Congress should be in a political position if you have dual citizenship anywhere.
I agree. Anywhere.
Your interest is
Israel or not.
States
Yeah, I agree. America, number one, number two, number three, like Nathan always says.
Yep.
But I mean, explain this? Like George Soros, even this Donald Trump was getting into it with John Stewart. His real last name is Leibowitz. George Soros' real last name Schwartz. Heinrich Kissinger, another Zionistic guy. I mean, recently tied into Trump. It's the overwhelming, the evidence. Why are they changing their last names? What are they hiding? I don't understand this.
Well, you've got George Soros, who, when I reflect on some of my material from the military, George Soros's name is on much of the paperwork that was circulating at a lot of these conferences that were discussing how to destroy, break apart, and resurrect Iraq. So George Soros was part of all that back in 2008. And George Soros, of course, we've seen orchestrating the management of all these refugees into Europe. It's his organizations, it's his nonprofits, it's his NGO organizations, which President Putin in Russia has have outlawed. Why? Because they're engaged in nation undermining, nation destroying. George Soros is responsible for a lot of the backwater destabilization of Ukraine.
Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia.
Yeah. I mean, what
I heard that.
What the United States has done is absolutely shameful, and we should have been on the side of Russia when the Soviet Union collapsed. Instead, we tried to crush and kill and strangle them, and by divine grace, God resurrected Russia and Putin, and now they are emerging as the last hope for Christendom. And really, they are our closest friend and ally, and we should be making friends with them and making friends with Putin and casting off the godlessness which has infected our own country.
That's the majority now, though, sadly, Scott. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. Sadly, it's not a majority here anymore. But, go ahead, Nathan, what were you going to say?
No, well, the people we should be allied with, Russia or Iran, you look at Iran, they're actually fighting ISIS.
Resisting the central banks.
We're not joining with them. We should be joining with these. They should be Russia and Iran should be some of our biggest allies.
Yeah, but it's because they tie them into Muslim, jihadis, ISIS, this and that. Your typical Fox News watchers, is co-opted by Israel's needs and wants, and they're cheering when Ted Cruz says we're going to carpet bomb, we're going to make the sand glow, and that's so disgusting when you hear that. I mean, people are going to think we said disgusting things tonight about Zionism and Judaism, but think about that. Ted Cruz was saying in his nomination push, which he failed at, but he was pushing, he's like, I'm going to make the sand glow. I mean, what if you said that about Israel, or you said that about any other group? Exactly. It's disgusting.
Ted Cruz was just quoting Hillary Clinton. She's a warmonger.
Exactly.
But I think that you guys are demonstrating in this program what Scott and I have been discovering is the power of the 2 and 3 or 4-man fire teams. That the reality is when we get together and invest in one another and get into agreement and start promoting the truth, let's remember what the Word of God says. A little leaven leavens the whole lump. When you're sharing the truth doesn't have to have lies to defend it. Okay? The truth is confirming other truth. And our understanding comes from God. He gives us wisdom and understanding. The little bit can leaven the whole lump. You guys are making a difference. We know it, and you know it.
There's something to be said. The military organization of 2-man firing teams you guys are doing, and we have to applaud you for it. And you are serving as the example that the rest of the nation needs to follow. You can do nothing alone. You have to do it as a team. You have to do it with at least 2 men, 3 preferably, and then expand from there. But you have to be a team organization so that you won't be attacked because you've got someone watching your back. So you guys are setting the stage for, a great rising in American leadership. It's sad, and it's depressing when we look around because we don't see any leaders in America. We don't see any leaders in the church. We see a bunch of emasculated cowards.
And Scott, look, we're coming to the end of the show. Scott, Michael J, Scott Bennett, Michael J. We're going to upload this on YouTube.
Caleb Hitt, look.
Caleb Hitt,
y'all go buy Scott's report, Shell Game. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it all over the internet. Go get Shell Game. Read that report. We look forward to having y'all back. Battle of New Orleans Radio.